First, I am very happy to be with you this morning because I think we are fighting in the same war, waging war. You are at the front line. I think I am also at the front line with you in something vital for your people, for companies, but also for society. For society, what you do to scale agile is vital for society. And there is a lot of there are a lot of containers. You know, containers, I mean frameworks, structure, boxes about agile. Roles. This is what I mean by container. You know, the roles, the frameworks. But I would like to insist a little bit on the content beyond the container, beyond the methodologies, beyond the squads, tribes, chapters, sprints, retrospectives, reviews, daily stand-ups, scrums, product owners, backlog. These are the containers. What is the spirit, the content of agile, and why is it vital for society? Well, you know, I am an economist, and it's very clear that our societies are in danger. Look at the productivity growth rate, what has happened over the last 5 decades. A clear slowdown in productivity improvement. Productivity is basically output divided by input. A slowdown. Over the last 5 decades, on average, the productivity growth rate in the largest European economies has been divided by 10. If you want a figure, it used to be 5% in the 60s, 70s. Today, it is 0.5% on average. And this is a major issue for society. When we are close to zero, it is a zero-sum game. The only way to improve the standards of living for some people is to degrade the standards of living for other people. The only way to open a new hospital somewhere is to close another hospital somewhere else. The only way to build a new bridge somewhere is to stop maintaining another bridge somewhere else, and then this bridge will collapse. Zero-sum game. So what's going on? Because we have a lot of innovations. What's happening? You know, just focusing on IT, computers, hardware, software, the internet, ERP systems, the web, the cloud, deep learning, machine learning. What's going on? I try to understand, and basically the answer is the way companies try to face the new complexity of business. We have measured this. I have measured this with our teams. The complexity of business has been multiplied by 6 over the last 6 decades, you know, to attract customers, keep customers, create value for customers has become 6 times more complex than 60 years ago. Building competitive advantage, differentiating has become 6 times more complex than 60 years ago. Companies need innovation, speed, reliability, affordability of their products, global consistency, local responsiveness, risk management, compliance, business development. This was not the case 60 years ago. In some respect, this is not the real problem because we have no choice. And also because when you solve more complex problems, when you are able to make a product of a higher quality at a lower cost, you create more value. So the real problem is the way companies respond. What do? They create more and more structure, processes, systems, committees, dotted lines, full lines, shared service centers, headquarters, clusters, hubs, countries, regions, KPIs, metrics, reviews. And on top of that, they add agile. the complicatedness of organizations has multiplied by 35 over the last 6 decades. And 35 is not far from 36. And 36 is 6 power 2. So it seems that our internal complicatedness, structure, process, system, scorecard, metrics, dotted lines, full lines, metrics, and so on, grows quadratically with complexity. And this is the real problem. Because in these organizations, managers spend 40% of their time writing reports because they have to report on more and more KPIs, more and more metrics. They spend between 30 and 60% of their time in meetings because they have to coordinate with more and more functions, not only the reporting lines solid, the reporting lines dotted, and also with the squads, the tribe, the chapter, the product owner. So how much is left to be with the teams? Not that much. Because when managers spend most of their time in meetings or writing reports, planning, deplanning, replanning, explaining, they have little time to be with their teams. As a result of this, based on our analysis, teams in these organizations spend between 40 and 80% of their time wasting their time, working on non-value adding activities, but harder and harder, longer and longer. This is what kills productivity, despite all the innovations, all the digital innovations around us. You know, just to take an example that I use in my TED Talk, but this is important from an agile point of view, which I did not explain in the TED Talk. You know, an automotive company was facing more and more competition, notably from Kia, the South Korean manufacturer, offering great cars with a great warranty period, 7 years warranty period. This European company was able to offer 1-2 years at best. It's not enough to remain competitive. We have to increase the warranty period to face Kia notably. Yes, but we have a problem. Our cars are very difficult to repair. You know, when you bring the car to the after-sales service, when it is still warranted, for example, to fix the lights, you have to remove the engine to fix the lights. And the car will have to spend 1 week in the garage instead of 2 hours. If we extend the warranty period to 7 years, we are dead. We are bankrupt. What is the solution? Make cars buy parts that are more resilient, you know, higher quality parts. Yeah, but if it is gold plated, the cost will be exponential. So the only solution is to design the car in a way that makes it easier to be serviced in the after-sales network so that you can increase the warranty period. What is the solution? Well, we have to think about design to repairability. Design to repairability, terrific. So what did they do? They created a new job, Mr. Repairability, somebody in charge of repairability who created a repairability process, repairability scorecard, repairability incentive. But these guys had already 25 metrics, 25 KPIs, you know, cost, power, compactness, aerodynamics, anti-corrosion, anti-collision. Now they have 26 metrics, 17% variable compensation. Repairability makes a difference of 0.6% in their total compensation for these design engineers. What was the impact? Zero. The cars were still too difficult to repair, but they had increased the complicatedness. Now there is a new structure, Mr. Repairability, repairability process, repairability metric, repairability evaluation, coordination with the 25 other evaluators. So if you step back, what's the solution? The world, the business world we are facing is 6 times more complex. Are we 6 times more intelligent individually? Well, the only way to face complexity is more intelligence. And that's the definition of intelligence, the ability to solve complex problems. but we are not 6 times more intelligent. So what is the solution? What can we do? Problem 6 times more complex, we are not 6 times more intelligent. What is the solution? Well, to create ways of working that better leverage, that better use people's intelligence, that better use their initiatives, their judgment, their adaptability, thanks to new ways of working. And this is what all companies are facing today, managing growth while ensuring efficiency and agility. You can call it agile, I call it smart simplicity. There are many words, holacracy, sociocracy, many, but at the end of the day, this is what all companies need to do, solve more complex problems by better using people's intelligence. This is a matter, of course, of boxes, structure, org chart, what you could call the skeleton. But it is more importantly about the ways of working, the way the boxes work together vertically with leadership, managers adding value by focusing people on the right issues, by enabling people, by recognizing, by rewarding, engagement, making sure people add value through execution, involving personally their judgment, their initiatives, instead of just ticking the boxes in a scrupulously compliant and bureaucratic way. And cooperation, cross-functional value added, each effort, designers in their work, they make choices that allow the after-sales service people that we repair, service the cars, to have more room of maneuver, more degrees of freedom, so that they don't need to remove the engine to fix the lights. Now, this is the transformation we have to go through. Now, agile. What? Well, to me, agile is great. It is about this. But very often we fall into the trap. We focus on the container, on the new agile structures, on the new agile frameworks. And I know many companies, they have the sprints, the reviews, the retrospectives, the daily stand-ups, the scrums, the product owners, the backlog, the tribes, the chapters, the squads, but not an agile way of working. We must not confuse the container with the content, the letter of the rule with the spirit of the rule. The spirit of agile, the spirit of all transformation is about finding ways that better use people's intelligence. And perhaps creating a Mr. Reparability is not the agile solution. Yet, in this automotive company, they had agile. They had agile in design. They were doing the sprints. They had agile in every function, but still they were not able to face the new complexity. Why? Let me try to explain what I mean by content. But just for you to start guessing what I'm talking about, I am talking about the logic of agile, perhaps what you could call the principles of agile, of this transformation, that we need to bear in mind beyond the frameworks, beyond the methodologies, beyond the new boxes, beyond the new structure. You know, cooperation. You know, in another TED Talk, I use a relay race example where the favorite team is the US based on their individual speed. But in the end, it is an average team that wins, that individually is not that fast. In that case, it was the French team. I know it because at the time I was based in France. Then I moved to the US. But so it's not because I am chauvinistic. It is just because at the time I was following the French team because I was based in France. And I worked with this lady who won the race, even though individually they were not faster against many other teams that were faster individually. And she told me, she showed me a photograph at some point. She said, look, this is me here. I came first. And this other lady, Bridget Foster, she came last. 8th out of 8 runners. Why? Is it because I was more motivated and so on. Yes, of course, I am always motivated, but I am sure Bridget Foster was also very motivated. Then she said, look at this face, this mouth, look at this one. Do you see a difference? In blue, you have real cooperation. In yellow, you have compliance. Hep, this is the baton, good luck. Can we put that in a job description? Can we put that in a process definition? Look, we can call something a sprint, but it is not because we change the container that we call it a sprint, that people will work out their guts to run it as a real sprint. Cross-functional teams. Is it because we put the same people in the same room that they will cooperate just because we change the container? The content cannot be decreed. And if we don't have cooperation, we don't have agile. To change what people do in their behaviors, their actions, their decisions, we often think we have to change the mindsets, the mentalities, the attitudes, the feelings. It doesn't work. We can ask people, be agile, think agile. Telepathy does not work. It's impossible to change people's mindset. Today, it is proven by neurosciences, by MRI, that it is the opposite. To change behaviors, change the context in which people work. And then their behaviors will adjust. And eventually, the mindsets will follow, but as a consequence, not as a root cause. This is what we need to do, change the context in which people work. And we may create squads, tribes, chapters, product owners, backlogs, call something a sprint. We can call the meeting a daily stand-up. If it doesn't really change people's context, we will not have more intelligence used at work to face more complex problems. So we need some principles beyond the frameworks, beyond the boxes, the new roles of Agile. Think about some principles, the logic, the spirit of Agile. And it is about understanding what people really do. What do they do? Why do they do what they do? Why is it that the designers don't cooperate with after sales, that they don't take into account the needs, the situations of the designers? Why? Then reinforce integrators, give them power and interest to make others cooperate. We can call a function a product owner, a tribe leader, but if they are not reinforced as integrators, they will not be able to play their role. We can change the label, the name, the container. If we don't provide them with more power and interest to make others cooperate, we will not have the agile spirit. Empower them, expand the shadow of the future, expose people to the consequences of their actions. By the way, that was the solution that we eventually found for this automotive designer. You know what was the solution? We told, the company, they did it, not us, the company, thanks to the work we had done on notably understanding why people really do what they do. They said to the design engineers, in 3 years, when the new car that you have designed is launched on the market, you will move to the after-sales service and you will become in charge of the warranty budget. And if the warranty budget explodes because the car that you have designed is too difficult to service, the warranty budget will explode in your face. I can tell you that they started to cooperate and they were able to increase the warranty period to 5 years. Not enough to face Kia. Not 7 years, but much better than 1 or 2 years. What was this solution about? It was exposing the design engineers to the consequences of their actions, creating a shadow of the future. And they started to cooperate. Why is it that the company didn't think about this solution in the first place? Yet they had Agile. They were using Agile in design, but they were not involving the after-sales service. This solution, you move from design to after-sales. What is it? It is a new career path from design to after sales. It is a human resource management lever, career path à HR. In HR, in the human resource management department, they were using Agile also. Yes, they were following Agile methodology to create new employee value propositions, to create new career paths, but they were using Agile in silos. You know what they were doing with Agile in HR? They were using Agile to imagine an exciting career path for Mr. Reparability. But the solution was to remove Mr. Reparability, this complicated solution with a reparability process, scorecard, metric, incentive. So you see, you need cooperation to deploy Agile at scale. And Agile by itself does not create cooperation if you don't think about it. Create reciprocity, make people more dependent on each other. You know, just to give you an illustration of the spirit of Agile, the principle of Agile, beyond the methodologies, the frameworks. Some of you who have traveled to Paris may know this place, the Place de l'Étoile, in the middle of Paris. Huge roundabout, 240 meters radius. So 240 meters radius, just the radius, 240 meters. 12 avenues, large avenues. The Champs-Élysées is the largest avenue in France. Huge avenues, 12 of them. You can have 15 cars side by side, 15, very, very complex. Now, tell me, is there a policeman in the middle organizing the traffic? No policeman. Are there lines, markings on the street? No, no markings on the ground. Are there traffic lights at the corners? No traffic light. Road signs? No road signs. Gosh, no policeman, no markings on the ground, no traffic light, no roads. It must be very dangerous. No, it is the safest roundabout in France. If you compare the volume of traffic to the amount of accidents, it is by far the safest. Why? Because when people drive here, they use their intelligence. They don't write a texto while driving. No, they focus, they concentrate. And when they see others making a mistake, they anticipate, they compensate, they sidestep, they cooperate. And when you create a context in which people use their full intelligence to cooperate, you manage complexity without complicatedness. And in companies, what do? Well, we create a policeman who is in charge. Where is Mr. Reparability, the supervisor, the product owner? We put markings on the ground with process definitions. We put road signs with decision rights. We put traffic lights with a RACI. We create complicatedness. Ask yourself, when you deploy Agile at scale, my solution, is it creating a context that impels people to use their intelligence, to cooperate, to add to each other, to multiply their intelligence? Or am I just adding to new complicatedness, creating Mr. Reparability with an agile way of working for Mr. Reparability and asking HR to use Agile to imagine new career path for Mr. Reparability to make Mr. Reparability excited? No, the real solution is cooperation. Remove Mr. Reparability, create a new career path with Shadow of the Future. Reward those who cooperate. Blame is not for failure, it is for failing to help or ask for help. Now, if you think about it, the Agile solutions that we all know can be derived from these principles, because this is, to me, the spirit, the content of this transformation. You know, Shadow of the Future, you know, sprints, when you have, are ways to expand the Shadow of the Future. You know, the next review will not be in 6 months, it is in 2 weeks. So I will be exposed to the consequences of my actions faster. In the traditional iteration, if I don't cooperate, I am fined for 5 months 29 days. With a sprint, I am exposed to the consequences of my actions in 13 days. Now, for the sprint to work, it must mean a real shadow of the future for people. If we just call the iteration a sprint and we don't change the content, if there is no gold medal with the sprint for the people, they will not run their best in the sprint. You know, the product owner is an integrator, but of course. So you see, you can derive the agile principles, the agile frameworks, the agile roles from these principles. But what matters is not the product owner in itself. It is to make sure that the product owner has power and interest to make others cooperate. So if you don't increase the total quantity of power, the squads, the tribes, the chapters, the product owners will not be able to play their role. The daily stand-ups or the reviews are ways to understand what people really do. So you see, you can derive a lot of agile methodologies from these principles because these are the essence, the logic, the content, but never forget the spirit of agile. I will conclude on this. You know, recently I was with the COO, not the CEO, the COO of a company, and they told me, we need to change our managers. They are not good enough. We need to change them in many areas. I said, what? Okay, but tell me, what do they do? Why do you want to change them? What do they do? Say, no. Let's not start this analysis paralysis. They are not good. We need to change them in many areas. But I said, tell me, what do they do? Why you need to change? What do they do? You need an analysis. I say, no, we already know what they do. Let's not. Okay, tell me then if you already know. Usually you need an analysis to know what people do, because I'm not talking about their job definition. This is what people should do. I am talking about what do they really do. No, we already know. I say, okay, tell me. So she said, our people, you know, first they don't decide. They don't have a decision-making attitude. They don't decide. And when they happen to decide, they don't implement. They don't have implementation discipline. And 3, we have some good practices here or there, but people don't cross-fertilize. This is the problem. I said, but look, I didn't ask you what your people don't do. I asked you what your people do. People don't spend their time not doing things. You know, people don't go to the office saying, okay, this morning, I will start by not deciding from 8 to 10, then from 10 to 12, I will not implement what I did not decide. And in the afternoon, if I have some time left, I will not cross-fertilize. This CEO was telling me what people don't do. They don't decide, they don't implement, they don't cross-fertilize. I don't care about what people don't do. What I want is what people do. Tell me, what do they do? Describe what they do. So you see, we keep saying what people don't do, but we need to understand what people really do. Because if we don't look at what people do, we will not understand why they do what they do. And therefore, we will never be able to change the context so that they do differently. So you see, this rule is very important. That's why I call it rule number 1. And this is the real spirit, to make people better use their intelligence collectively to face a more complex world. We must start understanding why people do what they do. If people do what they do, it's not because they are stupid, it is because they are intelligent. They adjust to the context. And we need to understand the context we need to change. If we don't look at what people really do, we will never understand why they do what they do, and we will not change the context. Instead, we will have new containers, new roles, new boxes. On top of the traditional hierarchy, we will have the agile paraphernalia, a lot of boxes, structure, roles, and processes on top of the previous ones. And we will have more complicatedness instead of greater ability to face complexity. I hope this was useful, my friend. Perhaps we have time for questions and hopefully answers.
Thank you. So, bonjour Yves, merci beaucoup pour ta présentation. I have a question. So, that's all. So, no, merci. I would like to know, so you're talking about about making better use of intelligence. How could this be done better in the context of agility? Maybe you have a good example for this?
Very good.
Yeah, it's a critical question.
No, but it's a very good question. To me, always ask yourself this question. What is the real problem we are solving for? What is the problem? You know, my old professor used to tell me, Yves, the problem is the problem. The problem is the problem. Understanding the problem, this is the real problem. You know, when we create Mr. Reparability, what is the problem we are solving for? We want somebody in charge of reparability. But is the problem to have somebody in charge of reparability? Or is the problem to make these guys collaborate so that the cars are easier to serve? You know, me, so ask yourself, what is the problem we are solving for? When we create markings on the ground, we put road signs or traffic lights on the Place de l'Étoile. What is the problem we are solving for? Do we want to make the mayor of the city cover his or her ass because we have put all the protections in place? Or are we trying to make people better use their intelligence? Always ask yourself, what is the problem am I solving for when I do this? And by having that in mind, what is the real problem? You know, there is another example I use in my book in chapter 6, if you want to use it. Again, they were using Agile in a railway company to put trains on time. And they said they wanted to use Agile, you know, because they were spending a lot of time reporting on train delays. They were spending thousands of hours reporting on delays, and they asked us for an agile way of reporting, you know, that would take less hours using Twitter, social media. Is there a way to spend less time reporting on delays? Until we said, but what is the real problem? To report on delays in a more agile way, or to put the trains on time? If you find a way to put the trains on time, you will have less delays to report on. So the real problem is not to spend less time on reporting on delays, it is to put the trains on time. So think always about what is the real problem we are solving for. And that is a good, I would say, a good compass, a good GPS in your effort.
Okay, so think more about what is the real problem and not like only intelligence. Okay.
And only solutions, you know, not only the, you know, because then we end up with, my problem is to make the tribe work, the chapters work, the squads work. No, what is the step back always, step back. The problem is the problem. And that's a way to make sure we use our intelligence on the right issues. We don't want to use our intelligence on spending less time reporting on delays. We want to use our intelligence in fostering cooperation between the stations, the drivers, maintenance, so that when there is a delay, they will collaborate to catch up with the delay. And that was the real solution in the end.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, so what you're explaining, like this organizational simplicity and creating a system for responsibility for the greater good, or for those things. It seems, if you work in corporates a lot, and I do, it seems like really the obvious truth. And for people that are in Agile, also for many years so already. And for me, the question is, how would we change career dynamics so that people are actually interested to go that way? Because it really does have a delegation power implication. So people will lose power at higher ranks and give power to people with lower ranks. So how can we change that career dynamic? And how does that plug in? What's your take on that?
Yes, very important. You know, that is what you're asking is a continent. And that's why, by the way, no, but, you know, we are talking about, Frederick Taylor changed the ways of working, and not only him, but there were other people like Fayol or whatever. But, you know, it took them more than 40 years to change the ways of working. You know, that's an organizational revolution. And us, we are going through a new organizational revolution, you know, similar to Taylorism, which was the last revolution. And since Taylor, there has been no revolution. If you think about all the solutions we are using today, they are just piling up Taylorian solutions that used to work in a simpler world to face a more complex world. And when we face tomorrow's problems with yesterday's solution, we end up with today's disasters. And this is why we have all these disasters today, with bridges that collapse, with everywhere, and productivity collapsing, because we are in this transformation. So your answer is part of this transformation, changing. And me, I'm writing an academic chapter for a book that will be published by German-speaking academics, by the way, based in St. Gallen University, which is explaining a little bit. And I try to explain in this chapter basically what you are talking about. You know, it is a transformation. You know, we need to we need to reward leaders not on their ability to make the right decisions. We need to reward leaders on their ability to make their teams find the right solutions. But very often, today, the role of leaders is to do trade-offs. You know, problems are escalated, and then there is the leader who makes the right trade-off, find the right solution, instead of creating the context for the teams to synergistically work out the right trade-off by themselves. So we are paying leaders to sabotage the company, because when you make a decision at a higher level without all the information at the bottom, by definition, your solution is of a lower quality than the one these guys could have taken, given the information and direct knowledge they have. So most of the management system is rewarding leaders to sabotage the company. I'm sorry, when this decision is taken 3 levels above where it should have taken by the leader, it is of a lower quality than the one that could have been made directly. And then, the leader made the right decision. Great trade-off, great leader. No, it is just the opposite. Bad trade-off, bad leader. So we have to change we have to look at productivity of the content of work differently. And I'm not paid to make decisions. I am paid to create the context for my teams to make the right decisions together and with others. This is part of the revolution. It's difficult, I agree with you, Paul, but it's on our way. It is on the trajectory. And this is why, you know, I always say in an agile transformation, we need to find ways to involve the CEO or the leadership team. If the leadership team is not directly sponsoring the effort, it's going to be very difficult, because, as you said, it is a real transformation. Not because the other guys are bad. No, they are great. But you need to create the context at the company-wide level.
Hi, merci beaucoup, Yves. Funny story, I actually went through the Rond-Point de l'Étoile, confusing the brake and the accelerator. Pressed the accelerator, I went through, and nothing happened to me. So yes. I really loved your example. So I was more interested in the point you made about integrators. I was wondering, who are these people? Where do we find them? And how can we empower them more?
Good. You know, perhaps if I made it rule 2, it's perhaps because after rule 1, it is also the most important. You know, after you have understood why people do what they do, then identify the integrators, reinforce them, and if they don't exist, create them. So an integrator is the most critical role in a company. It is not the most important. I'm talking about critical, not important. You know, like in my company at BCG, you could say that the most important roles are the partners because they own the company and so on. But the most critical role is the project leader. Critical, you know, close enough to the actions to be at the intersection of many issues, delivering practical solutions to clients, growing our teams, making them productive, leveraging our expertise centers. They are the crux, the cornerstone of our work. They are in a hotel. It's not the hotel manager. The integrator is the receptionist, because the receptionist is between customers and back offices like maintenance, housekeeping, laundry, and so on. They are the integrators. And my advice is to identify in your company, at your clients, the people you are working with, where are the integrators or those that should be reinforced as integrators. And when you reinforce them, you can remove a lot of complicated solutions. You don't need committees, you don't need metrics, you don't need scorecards, because you have people with power and interest to make housekeeping, maintenance cooperate, so that customers will have a room clean with lights and TV and Wi-Fi and toilets that work. Otherwise, if people who clean the room don't tell maintenance there is a problem, those who will discover the problems are the customers, and they will be given a rebate, an upgrade, and we will decline the price point of the occupancy rate of the hotel. So these are my people who are close enough to the operations and high enough to have some holistic view, sufficiently holistic view in the organization. And then you give them power and interest to make others cooperate.
I will take one last question from the chat. Jens has been posing an interesting question. You were talking about giving our best by means of competition. And Jens asked, do we really need competition to do our best? Do teams need competition to do their best? Or does a common purpose suffice?
Very nice, very good question. Yes, you're right, because when I talk about the relay race, I say there must be a gold medal, and for every sprint, there must be a gold medal. Otherwise, people will not give their best. It is true that this analogy puts a lot of emphasis on competition against the other teams. So I should not do that, because you are totally right, Jens. Competition, of course, we don't want monopolies. If we have a monopoly, an external monopoly, or an internal monopoly, it's always bad news. Monopolies never collaborate because they don't need to collaborate. So they will externalize their constraints onto the others, onto the users. But they are, so make sure there is no monopoly. But there are ways to have no monopolies without constant competition, just create overlaps. Like in my company, nobody has a monopoly. Me, I don't have the monopoly of change management because I have other colleagues that work on org design from a change management point of view, on cultural transformation from a change. So nobody has a monopoly. So I cannot just sleep on my laurels, be lazy, complacent, because I know that people have no choice. I have to work on my toes. But this is not competition. Nobody has put me in competition with another guy, and we see who is the best and so on. No. So very important, the purpose. The purpose is what will impel people to give their best. And this is something not easy. Again, I come back to what I was saying earlier to Paul. You can ask the HR team to create a sexy purpose for the company. We will have new container, not sure new content. Creating a purpose is something that takes real effort, real authenticity, real work, as opposed to something superficially sexy in terms of container. I fully agree. The purpose is very important. And by the way, we can share a common purpose without sitting in the same office, in the same headquarters. All of you with me, we share the same purpose. This is why you spend some of your time, I spend some of your time with you, totally for free. But it is not for free. It is because it is part of my purpose. Otherwise, I would not do this. So you see, what made us work together this morning is our purpose. Even though we are not in the same organization, but we have a common purpose, which is to make companies better face their new challenges, their people. Thank you, my friends. I wish you a great day. Great afternoon.
That was a great conclusion. Thanks a lot for being here, Yves. We're very grateful. Have a good day, and thanks.